Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahudi sammyao sanputoshi.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahudi sammyao sanputoshi.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿皆如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture today. This is the 13th of December here in Australia, 12th of December in California and Europe. We're delighted to be with you to investigate the 大方广佛华严经 Mahavaipulya Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra, known as the Flower Garland Sutra. And my name is Heng Sure, and I will be your facilitator for this mutual investigation. And those words are carefully chosen. I'm not here to tell you how it is any more than that Australian magpie in the background is telling you how it is on this stormy day here in Queensland. We're in the middle of a 3-day blow. It's quite a serious storm and quite marvelous. And I understand that California is also rejoicing at having rain finally, so that's a good thing. We'll be happy to share what we have. We have abundant rain. So. Alrighty. So today we're going to start our lecture as we usually do by invoking spiritual presence, particularly, here we are. When we're done, we're going to come back to page 58 and 59. But to do the invocation, we want to go to the frontispiece here, title page. And this is the way of, this is something that Master Hua showed us, whereby before we investigate the Dharma, we follow Samantabhadra, Bodhisattva, and ask for the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha of the 10 directions and the 3 periods of time, they say, past, present, and future, to join us, to come to where the sutra is opened and explained, to lend their light to it. And now, depending on your strength of your Dharma practice and your virtue, that light is more or less. And when Master Hua would, when we would request Dharma of Shifu before the sutra lecture, you genuinely had a feeling that something had arrived, that something was very special about the room after the invocation that was different from before, right? You had a feeling they came, they actually did. And he would say, of course they come. Why would you doubt it? They're only hoping that people will open these sutras and pay attention to the Buddha's wisdom. And you just have to do it ru fa, according to Dharma, the way it's been traditionally done. Now, when that sutra lecture was over, you definitely had a feeling of having been cleansed, having been blessed. Things were better, worries were fewer, joy was accessible, and your vision was expanded. You could see a little further. Now, is it the same effect now here after our teacher has entered nirvana? You know, are we able to invoke that same spiritual presence? Well, why not? I mean, we can try to. Same spiritual presence? No, of course not. But with the same sincerity and doing it the same way, I would hope that those who come after us will see the way we do it and connect to the way Master Hua did it as he followed his teachers and the tradition that goes back 2,500 years. So we'll do our part and just let the three jewels do their part. We don't have to test them or doubt them. We just do our share, and that's good enough. Now, the way we do it here in Australia is we add a banjo, by golly. So we'll do it in Chinese to an old melody. Move our sleeve. Here we go. So I invite everybody to put your palms together. 请大家合掌，我们共敬常住三宝，莅临大乘。南无大方广佛华严大眼海佛菩萨，南无大华佛菩萨，南无大华严华严海佛菩萨，南无大华严海佛菩萨。华佛菩萨，南无大华佛菩萨。Last time. 南无大华I believe our magpie is singing in G. It's nice, it's in harmony. Righty. He is serenading the rain, and I'll take it. Beautiful sound. Okay, we're going to page 50. Sorry about the scrolling here. Hold on. There we go. 58. We found it. Okay. What are we doing? We are investigating the final description in the prose section of what a 10th stage Bodhisattva is like. Last week I described, Last week I talked about a refrain that the 10 stages has. Every one of the 10 stages has a portion at the conclusion of the prose section that is repeated, and it's upped a notch. It's not actually a refrain, it's a pattern that gets amplified and expanded with each successive stage. So we're right in that portion now. Because this is the 10th stage, there's an extra part that isn't in the other 9, but when that's done, then we get to the verses that repeat the Dharma, repeat the contents taught in the 10th stage. Okay? Here we go. It's this line right here, and it's too small. We need it bigger. Expand my page. There we go. Okay, the Chinese goes like this. 佛子慈菩萨摩诃萨，以能安住如是智慧。Going down, crossing the page. 诸佛世尊复更未说三世 智，法界识别智，遍一切世界智，照一切世界智，慈念一切众生智，举要言之乃至未说，得一切智智。此菩萨十波罗蜜中，智波罗蜜最为增上，于波罗蜜非不修行。English, please. Disciples of the Buddha, when this Bodhisattva Mahasattva abides securely in such wisdom, all the Buddhas, Tathagatas, tell him more about wisdom concerning the three periods of time, wisdom of differentiations of the Dharma realm, wisdom of pervading world systems, wisdom of illumining world systems, and wisdom of kindly mindfulness of sentient beings. In summary, they even tell him how to attain the wisdom of wisdoms. Among the 10 Paramitas, this Bodhisattva emphasizes the Paramita of knowledge. He does not fail to cultivate the other Paramitas. That's our text for today. So we heard about wisdom light last week. We heard about Maheshvara and Ishvara. And these devas, these gods. We learned a lot about the gods last week. And our Bodhisattva, in summing up the 10th stage, it has to do with 智, that word in Chinese, which, let me show it to you. It's right here. It's this one. That guy, right there. 智. Right? Okay, that's it in Chinese. Now, there are those of us, skillful translators, who will tell you that that character 智 shouldn't be translated as wisdom. It should be translated as knowledge. Is that a difference that you make in your mind? You care about that? What's the difference? Well, in Sanskrit, chances are, it's very different. Wisdom, as when it's talking about the sutra, particularly the Avatamsaka, is prajna wisdom. Like the 6th paramita, the 6th perfection, prajna, right? Boro mi. Different from jnana, which is knowledge. So, okay, what's the difference? And honestly, I can't tell you. I can give you the theory, but because I possess neither one, neither prajna nor jnana, so I can only quote what others have said about it. I don't have this experience in my own system embodied to be able to share with you, but I'm deeply interested in the difference, and I think to the Buddha and to the Bodhisattvas who are trying to describe the Bodhisattva path, they're really different. Why do I think so? Well, let's look at, we heard you know what? I'm ahead of myself. I'm going to discipline my exposition and use our technique. What's our technique? Go to the text first. Look at the text. Second, pick out, so what does it say? Can we agree on what it says? That's the text. Then we come back. Do it again. Say, do we know what it means? And from that inquiry, we pick out certain topics, ideas, principles, words, practices to explain. So let's do it that way, all right? I won't go out of order here. So, the text. Disciples of the Buddha. When this Bodhisattva, the leader among other Bodhisattvas, a great Bodhisattva, abides securely. Is it Anju? Yes, it is. Anju. Lives at peace, right? Stays securely in wisdom, like we've been hearing about, the 10th stage. All the Buddhas, all the Buddhas Tathagatas tell him more about wisdom concerning the three periods of time. Okay, so he's learning more. In other words, there's more to learn. He's not there yet. If he were already the equal of the Buddha, they couldn't tell him anything. It would all be available to him without help. So, because he is still 10th stage Bodhisattva, or she is still a 10th stage Bodhisattva, so the Buddhas are ahead and are happy to teach, and the Bodhisattva is still a student. What do they tell him about? Wisdom concerning san shi, past, present, and future. We could, at this point, right now, translate that as knowledge. And let's do that for you, just to say, what happens in your mind when you hear all the Buddhas, Tathagatas, telling more about knowledge concerning the 3 periods of time? Things to know. Maybe knowledge is learned, whereas wisdom is inherent, is uncovered. Maybe. But, and we'll come back to this, this is already interpretation. We're supposed to look at the text first, then interpretation. If knowledge is lesser, let's say, and important than wisdom, why is the Prajna Paramita number 6 and the Jnana Paramita number 10? Which would possibly indicate that the knowledge, the jnana, is a higher application than number 6. If we're using the paramitas as a yardstick. Okay, think about that. What else? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 kinds of knowledge / wisdom. What's the second kind they tell him more about? They tell him about 法界区别, 法界差别, differences in Dharma realms. I didn't know there were differences in the Dharma realm, right? It's either differentiations within one Dharma realm or differences between many Dharma realms. And so what's the Dharma realm? Well, 法界, it's the place where wisdom operates. It's the place that consciousness transformed becomes. When consciousness is transformed and no longer cuts up in order to learn, the what's physics' favorite is reductionism. If you can know the smallest piece, likely you can know the largest system. That's a very stable, solid, time-tested, peer-reviewed methodology of science is reductionism. You analyze tiniest parts, right? Elements. And the periodic table of elements, then put together, teaches you about world systems. Okay, that works, right? For a certain kind of knowledge. But the Buddha's wisdom begins by transforming the 分别. Our Chinese word 分别 has 2 knives. Think of a chef chopping up carrots and bai cai, bok choy to put in the stir fry, right? Doesn't do that anymore. Instead, it integrates. It integrates. So instead of discriminating to learn, differentiating, you reflect, you contemplate, and you see it in a glance, the entirety of it, root to branch tip, right? Seed to fruit is visible at once. That's how the Dharma realm appears, through wisdom instead of through discrimination or differentiation. So here he is differentiating Dharma realms. Multiple Dharma realms. Okay, could be. Could be. What else? The wisdom, knowledge of pervading world systems. 遍一切世界. So it could be the wisdom pervading Dharma world systems. So a kind of wisdom that just is everywhere. Nowhere it's not. It's included, inclusive, right? The wisdom of illumining world systems, which is what? 照一切世界智, the knowledge, wisdom that shines on every world system. Are you lost? Is this like, oh boy, there goes the Avatamsaka? What are we looking at? This is what Buddhas are teaching Bodhisattvas who are one step away from being Buddhas themselves. So for sure, this is big. This is big, 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 big bites. Okay, so be patient. It will become clear. Finally, I like this one. 此念一切众生智, the knowledge, wisdom of thinking kindly about living beings. This is what the Buddhas are sharing with Bodhisattvas. 3 periods of time, Dharma realms, world systems, that principles that go throughout them, and then reflecting on them. So they show up, and then the inhabitants of those world systems in the Dharma realm in the 3 periods of time, kindly thinking of them, 慈念, right? Thinking of them with kindness. So good, right? And you know that nobody's left out. I don't know, that warms my heart. And as Master Hua scolded me, said, you still don't understand how compassionate the Buddha really is. He's on your side. He's just waiting for you to wake up. That's not how religious authorities were presented to me growing up. Yeah, God had a temper. I can't imagine the Buddha with a temper, right? Temperamental Buddha. In summary, 举要言之, they even tell him how to attain 一切智智. Okay, the wisdom of wisdoms, the knowledge of knowledges, that's where it breaks down. So, Heng Sure, my Dharma brother who is establishing jnana as a good translation for Chi, here it's got to be something different. It could be the knowledge of wisdoms, the wisdom of knowledge. 一切智智. This is a state of enlightenment that the Buddhas are bringing the 10th-stage Bodhisattva towards. Okay? Yeah. Hard to explain? Sure it is. This is why. Totally abstract. If we don't, if we're still struggling, we're quarantined in a house with a spouse who's not talking to us this month. Why? Too tight, too close. Same 4 walls, same ceiling, same lighting, same smells out of the kitchen. And we can't stand each other, right? Because we're locked in with these people who we can get along with if there's some distance. And here we're talking about wisdom concerning 3 periods of time, and I'm just trying to figure out how to get through the night without scolding the person who's snoring next to me. It's like, ooh, I got it. I understand how that is. But what are we doing? Why do we want to know about a 10th stage Bodhisattva? Is because they're real. They are here right this minute. This is not long ago and far away. And every now and then, I get an insight that I'm going in this direction. And it's a goal. It's a state that I can aspire to, and I want to. So, yeah. Even if I feel totally unworthy of reflecting on this level of purity and goodness, my heart, that's mostly my head reacting with doubts, with affliction, with irritation, right? My heart can be touched by this, and I can be drawn to it, even when my head is going, cat in a bathtub, no. I don't want to be good, I don't want to be good. Or like Gillian Welch, I love her song. I want to be good, but not right now. Hey, look at Miss Ohio. Oh me, oh my, oh, look at Miss Ohio. I want to be good, but not right now. Right? Yeah. So, okay. That's enough. We can be one toe into the Avatamsaka Dharma realm, and that's enough. Because this wisdom doesn't go away. This is not subject to moods or seasons or pandemics, right? This wisdom survives the coming and going of world systems. How much the more so our lifetimes. So just to keep touch with it, even if sometimes we feel not up to it, right? This is way too high for me. Okay, but I can listen to it. If I listen to music on the radio, if I listen to advertisements on my TV show, certainly I can spend a little bit of time with the Avatamsaka. It's worth it. You're better off. Among the 10 Paramitas, this Bodhisattva emphasizes the Paramita of knowledge, and he does not fail to cultivate the other Paramitas. Okay. What have we got in this word, Paramita? Well, there are 6 of them, usually. Paramita, depending on how you divide it up, can mean 2 different things. When I think it was my first day in grad study at UC Berkeley for my master's in Oriental languages, I took Professor Lancaster's class on reading Buddhist texts. In fact, I took that class 3 times. Not because I failed it twice, by choice. Right? I helped him teach it once. And he brought this word up as a kind of a first lesson on how important it is to learn the tools for translation. In other words, languages, the value of learning languages. And he said, okay, paramita, right? Fun to say, it's got 3 A's in it, paramita. We can say that really easily. Different from bolomi, which Western tongues sometimes can't say bolomi. But paramita is fine, Sanskrit. He said, there's so much history in this one word. If you translate it, depending on where you break it, parami or paramita, depending on how you break it up, it means either perfection or it means how to go across, like a bridge. Very different meanings. And both are suitable for the Buddhist principles this word was given to name. This Buddhist principles this word names. So what is it? The 6 or 10 perfections, the 6 or 10 ways to cross over. Crossings over. Right? And Shifu would say, 道彼岸的法, right? Practices, dharmas that take us to the other shore. And so that's the classical way to define a paramita. And this is the 10th stage chapter, the 10th stage of the 10 stages chapter. And each one, I said there's a refrain that happens at the end of every one of the stages. This is paramita number 10 matches stage number 10. Paramita on stage number 1, the Huanxidi, the stage of happiness, the first paramita came along, the paramita of generosity, of giving. So paramitas and stages match, all 10. We're at number 10. So we get the paramita of zhi, jnana, knowledge. There it is. That's the one we were talking about earlier. All right, I want to take just a second here. It says among the 10, the Bodhisattva emphasizes. How does it say in Chinese? 十波罗蜜为增长, it grows. This is his emphasis. The other paramitas, he still studies, still practices them. All right, so let's look at these paramitas, these 波罗蜜, 道比安法. The familiar six. Now, I've got to step back here. In the Pali tradition, the Thai forest tradition, they talk about Barami, with a B, Barami. And, of course, Barami and Paramita sound very similar, right? Related, but different interpretation. So people who are familiar with the Thai forest tradition or the Pali style of Buddhism, don't assume you know what the Paramitas are if you know the word Barami. Barami, as I understand the Pali, or at least in the Thai tradition, is somebody's qualities of goodness, kind of like blessings, right? This person's got a lot of Barami, and so things work out for him. Meaning, you have qualities of goodness in your nature that you cultivate. So, okay, that's wholesome. My friend Eve Decker, our Berkeley, California Buddhist singing sister, and also a teacher of Vipassana, Eve Decker, and also a cantor at the local synagogue. She put out an album of 10 wholesome qualities that she drew from her Buddhist practice. And there's generosity and there's patience and all. But it's interesting how, likewise, they didn't match. So in the Buddhist world, there are different levels of paramitas, of ways across. What I'm going to give you today, based on our sutra passage, is the standard Mahayana list. But when we go from 6 to 10, right away it's no longer standard, it's Avatamsaka, particularly the Flower Garland Sutra adds 4. We are known for our totality, always going to the fullness. Avatamsaka is the teaching of totality. So we don't stop with 6, we add 4 more. So what are the 6? The 6 are generosity or giving, paramita, dana paramita, right? And then number 2 is the shila paramita, the perfection of morality or precepts or goodness, wholesome innate qualities. Okay, so giving and precepts, foundation. What's next? Another pair, vigor, kshanti paramita. I said it wrong. Patience. Number 3 is patience, and that's kshanti, right? And then number 4, its counterpart is virya, known as vigor or strength. Virile is the same root, meaning strong, right? Full of yang energy. So patience and vigor. Then what? The next 2, depending on how you translate them, often retain their Sanskrit. So number 5 is dhyana paramita. We in the Dharma Realm Buddhist Association translate it often as Chan paramita, the perfection of Chan, which is a Chinese word. It's still not English, right? So what would you do, how would you translate it in English? Probably meditative focus, or the perfection of samadhi sometimes. So dhyana, chan, samadhi, another Sanskrit word, meditation, focus, concentration. Okay. And then the last one is prajna, perfection of wisdom. So another pair, chan and boro, right? Dhyana and prajna, chan and 智慧, or meditation and wisdom. Those are the 6. And they often are thought of as pairs, right? You begin your practice, you want to draw near, you want to transform your life beyond the act of meditation, which was great. I like stillness, I like vipassana, I like mindfulness. What's next? Generosity. Open your heart. establish good, wholesome connections with the world around you through generosity. Let it come through you. Don't stop it and cling to it. Pass it on, and lo and behold, you have more than before, right? That opening to letting material and kindness and good thoughts move through you to others. Open-handed economy, right? Gift economy. This kind of generosity begins our practice. They call it the practice that launches every Buddha, right? 一切诸佛本所修行的法门. It's the fundamental practice that all Buddhas practiced. And then, once we have this wholesome connection, these affinities with others through our generosity, then there's more energy. And someone who is mindful, someone who is watching what it's like as we fill with energy, you can see it go away. You can see it leak out. You can see it dissipate. And you get high and then you get low, and then you get high and you get low. And think, my meditation is better when I'm feeling full, when I'm feeling charged, right? How do I hang on to it? The Buddha said, I have a method. If you like to follow me, says the Buddha, then here are some suggestions, things to avoid so that you can cling to, without clinging, so that you can hang on to, without hanging on, so that you can keep together that goodness that you cultivate with such effort. Don't kill. Cherish life. Don't steal. Be generous instead. Don't cheat on your vows, on your relationships, on your commitments. Be true to your promises instead. Don't lie. Be true to your word. Don't use substances that, when they get in your blood, confuse you. Right? So he said, avoid those 5 mistakes, and what you cultivate will be yours. You keep it. So, second paramita, shila, this paramita, the perfection of personal virtuous conduct, behavior, right? That's a pair. So, a lot of giving, and then following the guidelines, and my goodness, you're different. You get up in the morning, you bounce out of bed, waiting to brush your teeth, get a cup of something hot, and get off to work to help others. You feel the connection. Your cells are alive in the world, right? Every breath feels charged with goodness. Why? Because of what you did. You started to change your life, and you placed it on giving and precepts. Okay, at this point, somebody says, hey, why don't we meditate together? Let's get a group, we can sit together, encourage each other. So you do, and you get to a place in your sitting where it feels good, but nothing seems to, it gets to be kind of like work. And you're feeling good, your focus is showing up at work, showing up at school, showing up on the basketball court, your free throw percentage is going up because the basket looks bigger, you and Steph Curry, 50 out of 50. And yet it's hard to get any further, right? And you hear a teacher. The teacher comes to visit and watches you practice and says, you know what you need, son, madam? You need patience. Just be patient. Nothing good comes easy. And often the best things come hard, right? Nature grows gardens in seasons. So you're now the gardener of your own wisdom garden, and the Dharma is the crop, and it grows naturally. It is organic. So be patient. And he says, meanwhile, keep up. Keep up your pressure. If you want to sharpen the knife, hold it just right against the grindstone. Press it too hard, you'll burn it out. Keep it out of contact, nothing changes, it doesn't sharpen. Hold it right to the grindstone. Keep turning that wheel. And this combination of patience and vigor, before you know it, suddenly you're way up higher than you'd ever been before. Now petty conflicts seem insignificant, right? And selfish goals just seem like obstacles to what you're looking for. And the view from where you've climbed is so sublime, right? Now, at this point, there are genuine transformations, and the meditation you practice takes you into the dhyanas. And from that stillness arises prajnas, wisdom's insight, okay? So, giving and precepts, patience and vigor, meditation and wisdom, right? Samadhi and wisdom. That's how the 6 paramitas function together. And this is helpful, I thought, when I saw this. Master Hua would always say, those paramitas are the Bodhisattva's dharmas. He, in his poems, the 10 Dharma realms are not beyond, are included within a single thought. He said, 十法界不离一念心. That was his Shifu's verses. He introduced the various goals of Buddhist practice, the saints and the sages of Buddhist practice. The voice hearers, the Shravakas, they cultivate what? They have a unique signature practice, and it's the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Then the Pratyeka Buddhas, the solitary Buddhas, they have a signature practice, and it's the 12 links of conditioned arising, pratitya samutpada. They contemplate those and awaken, right? Bodhisattvas have the 6 paramitas. That's what bodhisattvas cultivate. And if you want to be a bodhisattva, you can enter through the door of the 6 paramitas. If you want to be a Shravaka, a voice hearer, incredible accomplishment, then you enter through the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. You want to be a Pratyeka, you enter through the door of the 12 links. Contemplate those dharmas and put your life, your shen, xin, xing, ming, your body, your life, your nature, and your mind into the mold of those practices, and out comes voice hearers, arhats, that is, Pratyeka Buddhas, solitary Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. Okay. That was the formula. Shifu gave us that as a formula. It's like, I can repeat that. Yeah. What does it mean, right? What's that talking about? Well, what's different about the Bodhisattvas is relationships. If you think about those paramitas, you can give to yourself, but mostly you give to someone else, right? Generosity is, you can be kind to yourself and give to yourself, but you're giving to others. The precepts are, you don't kill others. You cherish their lives, right? You don't steal from others, right? So it's in relationship that the Bodhisattva defines his or her cultivation. So why say that? Why is that significant? How many people, when they hear about Buddhism, assume incorrectly, stereotypically, that Buddhists are world-hating, solipsistic, sociopathic loners, right? Sitting under a tree, seeking nirvana at the expense of everyone else. Is that stereotype out there? Oh, yes. Sure it is. I've had people, what do you want to sit there like a lump on a log, man? Get a job, you know. So, okay, right. There is that understanding, not just a Buddhist, but pretty much anybody who decides to look within instead of chasing ghosts and baubles outside, shadows, you know. So That's a knee-jerk stereotype view of fear, mostly based on fear, of a misanthropic, inner search, futile inner search for what? Rejection of the world. Nah. Not when your focus of practice is in giving and goodness and patience and vigor. All of those are in relationship to helping others wake up. 自脚脚他, 自利利他, 自 what's the third one? 自度度他, right? That's it. Shifu would say the Bodhisattva wakes himself up, benefits himself, takes himself across by waking others up, by benefiting others, and by taking others across. So there's no difference at this point. And the Bodhisattva's vision includes the Tong Ti Da Bei, we are the same body. There's no difference in the earth, in my physical form, and the earth in every one of my relatives throughout time and space. And the same for you, right? Same earth, same water, same fire, same air, and inside the same nature, this thing, whatever you call it, the Great Spirit, right? The Buddha nature, the soul, no different. They're not different colors, they're not different atomic weights, shelf lives, half-lives, same. So with that in mind, taking oneself across is taking others across, and the opposite is true. Here come the Paramitas. So that's where they're called dharmas, methods that take us across, right? How to cross over. So the crossing over part, the du, we've talked about that before. The Chinese word du, 自度度他, right? You take yourself across and take others across. The notion is this, is on this shore is affliction, trouble, blues, miseries. Over there's the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and that's nirvana. That's a place free of, where all the pain's over. And here, where there's birth and death, we come and go, come and go, come and go. To get over to that shore where suffering ends, we have to cross over the flood of fanna, of affliction. So, samsara is here, nirvana is there. To cross over, we cross over the flood of affliction. How do we do it? Paramitas. We take others across. So these paramitas are ways across. That's where that translation of the name comes from, right? They're perfections, the perfected human being, but they're also ways across. Alrighty. How are we doing? Good. You want to see some afflicted living beings? What do? Here is my illustration of the paramitas, the idea that you take others across. We ready? Let me put up our optimizing for a video clip. This was taken 3 hours ago on my deck. And as I mentioned, this is our first day of a 3-day rainstorm. Second day of our 3-day rainstorm. Rained heavy last night. It's going to rain heavier tonight and then on tomorrow. So I came down this morning, and what did I see on my deck? A turkey, a million lorikeets, many pigeons, and parrots, all sheltering in place under my deck, under my roof. Yeah, there they are. Oh, and the turkey too. What do? They cuddle up. They yawn. They preen each other's feathers, and they hang together for warmth. Look at it. Taking each other across. Shivering. Banding together. This is what you do if you're a lorikeet in Queensland and it's raining like mad. Sleeping. Sleepy lorikeets. Look at that. How about that? That's from this morning. And I'm happy. I don't charge them rent. You know, they're just... I even give them breakfast. So, yeah. That's what you do. Teamwork, right? And it must work because they've been doing this for a couple million years. Here, right here. And what fun to be able to witness these citizens of the bush, of the Queensland bush, when it rains. And they don't look happy. I mean, when it's, oh man, they're cold and wet. There's no secret. They just get wet, you know, and they endure. But beautiful to see them, survival skills of the Queensland birds. There is a theory that Birds of the World began in Australia. It's an interesting book. Bird songs. 佛子师命料说，菩萨摩诃萨地施法云力，若广说者，假使无量而生其劫，亦不能尽。Disciples of the Buddha, this is called a summary explanation of the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's 10th stage, the stage of the Dharma cloud. If I were to explain extensively, even in limitlessly many asamkhyas of eons, I could never finish, he says. So more of the summary of the 10th stage and the close you here. Hold on here. There we go, there we go. Yep. There we are. These are the Paramitas. We need to give you 4 more. When we get to wisdom, so here's our pair, and here's our pair, here's our pair. Because the Avatamsaka always gives us tens of things, we need 4 more to get to the 10 paramitas. Number 7 is fangbian, expedient skills, sometimes called fangbian zhihui, right? Expedient wisdom. What's an expedient? An expedient is a means, a technique that is tuned to the time. Last week it would have been good, this week it's no longer good, vice versa. It's tuned to the place, meaning this is exactly where it should be used. Now, here and now, because it's effective here but not over there. And it's tuned to the person. So Bodhisattvas observe the perfection of expedient skills because this is the only way their message is going to connect. Right? I was toting up yesterday all of the stories we know about our teacher, Master Shenhua, our founder, as he introduced the Dharma to the West. He was a pilgrim, he was a pioneer, and he was not the only one. This is interesting to make this clear. There were many other Chinese Mahayana monks. If we only focus on our tradition, of course there were Japanese and Sri Lankan and others, Tibetan. But in the Chinese, the Han Chuan Fojiao, in the Chinese Mahayana, Master Hua was not the only one who came to Chinatown, New York, Chinatown, San Francisco, Chinatown, Los Angeles, Chinatown, Vancouver, Toronto, right, etc. But he was perhaps, I don't want to say the only one, he was the most successful one who made it his expedient skill he expediently made it his purpose to reach out to Westerners. And that single fact, as I've been watching for 4 decades, which other Chinese Mahayana teachers succeeded and didn't succeed, and why or why not, language and culture is the barrier. It's the thing. It's the obstacle. So many really good, really kind Chinese monks and nuns came to America, bought a church or a restaurant or a house somewhere, in the inner city often. Let's say New York City's Chinatown, and got the Buddhas in, got their Wang Tai Sheng Buddha image, and got their chanting books, and set it all up, and Kai Guang on the statue, and opened the door and waited for the Americans to come in. And they got 1 or 2, and people would drift in, and they would come in and go, "Oh, that's really interesting. Why is the Buddha gold? Yeah. What's his head is all curved? What's that about?" And the monk would go, "What did he say?" And they would wind up offering food at lunch and signing the guest book, saying goodbye, and never coming back. Because why? Couldn't communicate. And Master Hua, Shifu, didn't do it that way. He overcame the language and culture barrier through his willpower. Not speaking terrific English, but understanding what was being said and finding ways to share what he had to share with the people, East and West, North and South, young and old, Chinese, Western, sharing with them his knowledge of the Dharma and his knowledge of humanity. That brought us back and brought us back and brought us back. That was the difference, right? And he even made vows to translate the entire Tripitaka, speaking only Mandarin himself, in Cantonese, right? So that's what a difference. What a difference. The other monks, I've been to those places, and the elder monks who are so good, they say, "Oh, if only you, Heng Sure, if you would come around and help me translate us, we might get a couple Westerners in here." I'd love to, but I'm, booked up. I'm busy working. If you come out to California, we'll let you. I'll translate for you if you come to Gold Mountain. You come to City of 10,000 Buddhas, and we'll translate for you. Some did, but it was that big difference, that inability to cross the language barrier and then the culture barrier. What are these crazy Americans doing? Why do they do that? So, that's number 7. Number 8 is the paramita of vows, the perfection of vows, setting your will. I will do this. Life after life if necessary. It will be necessary. I promise that I will be reborn in Amitabha Buddha's land of utmost happiness. Jiu shang jing du Amitabha. Right? You vow that you will. Just a thought out of your heart, but it's a strong one. A vow is a simple human thought, but it comes with intent and purpose, and you put your heart into it. I will. I promise this will happen, right? I vow so. Do we have vows in our lives? Yeah, we do. Marriage vows, right? What else? Contracts. Sign on the line with the force of law behind it. That's a vow, right? If you are a professional, suppose you take the bar, you pass the bar exam, you're a lawyer. You vow that you will uphold the law as you serve. If you're a doctor, the Hippocratic Oath, right? These are all vows, right? That we are civil society. We see when you testify in a court of law, right? When you hold office, political office. You put your hand on the Quran. You vow on the Quran. It has binding power, right? You don't mess up in the eyes of Muhammad. You don't. So, yeah, those are vows. But the Bodhisattva's vows are strong and deep. Sometimes you have the feeling that the vows bring you back. I certainly had a feeling when I saw 3 characters over the door of Gold Mountain Monastery, Hua Yan Hui. What's that? And Bhikshu Heng Yo said, oh, Shifu was explaining the Avatamsaka Sutra, Huayan Sutra, Master Qing Liang's preface to the Avatamsaka, Flower Garland Sutra. You ever heard of it? No. Oh, well, it's funny. You arrived. You just started, and here you are. Maybe you're connected to it. Oh, maybe. Number 9 is strength. Li, bala paramita, right? The perfection of strength, power, right? And it takes huge strength to teach living beings, to come back and come back and come back. And the Bodhisattva comes up with it. That was number 9. And then today's, 十波羅蜜, right? Jnana. And you can put a jnana it's over the first. We need our Sanskrit staff here. Okay, there's a tilde over the N, jnana. And what's different? Why is jnana higher than prajna? Interesting. We're investigating that as we go. So these are the 10. We add 4, right? Expedience, vows, strength, knowledge. Those are all perfections that the Bodhisattva uses to take living beings across. Yeah. Okay, add those to the top 6, and you have the Bodhisattva's 10. So there we go. And I was looking at these and thinking, Master Hua arrived and had to come up with something to take us Americans and his other Chinese disciples across. What you going to do? We come fully replete with our habits and our blindnesses and our preferences, things we like, right? Things that we can't stand. Like Americans are and Australians are deep, deep, deep in the bone into freedom, right? Don't fence me in. But anybody who was raised in a Commonwealth country has a queen, has a royals in their lives. Canadians, right? Indians. Not so much in India, it's a republic, but you know what I mean. They were raised with this notion of there's a special set of families. So if you watch The Crown, you know about royal families. And in Australia, by golly, that sense of owing something or maybe nothing. Maybe you're not a royalist and you resent that. But all the same, that's part of the culture. America doesn't have one. We don't have kings. We don't have dictators. We just proved that. Although there are people who are confused about that point. So how interesting, right? Shifu had to look deeply at the culture and say, what defines the minds of these folks? And how can I use that to teach us? And I was thinking, there's this phrase that says that in the Mahayana we say that the Buddha looked at living beings As soon as he woke up, what was the first thing the Buddha said? Here he has brand new, enlightened eyes. And, you wonder right at that point, what's the first thing the Buddha said? Well, depending on the Theravada vision or the Mahayana vision, it's a different thing that the Buddha said. In our Mahayana tradition, they say, Chizai, Chizai, Chizai. The Buddha said, strange, strange, strange indeed are living beings. Every single living being has the Buddha nature and can become a Buddha. But because of our random false thoughts and our attachments, we don't wake up to our inherent potential for wisdom. Two things, false thoughts and attachments. So what are those attachments? My God, wouldn't you like to be a Buddha? Wouldn't you like to be absolutely free of fear, free of suffering of any kind? Right? Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, why not? Well, false thoughts and attachments. What are attachments? What are attachments? Good question. So, I thought of one. I was going through this attachment thing. And listening today, Terry Epstein Nicholson Guocan talked today in the lecture about her memories of her teacher, and her husband, Alan Nicholson, Gogui, talked last week in the series that Madalena Tan started called 我的师父. Highly recommended if people want to get closer to Master Hua, listen to the senior disciples talk. So Terry today was talking about how Master Hua expediently taught her using this Paramita number 7, the Paramita of expedience. And I was thinking about me too, how I was taught. And one of the things that I brought into my leaving home with me was an attachment to the practice of astrology. And this was unexpected, right? We don't know what's waiting for us as the calendar leaves turn, right? November becomes December, December becomes January, New Year, January becomes February, Chinese New Year, February becomes March, March becomes April. As those calendar leaves turn, we don't know what's going to come up, right? Now, coronavirus vaccine has arrived. Last week it wasn't there. This week witnessed the first vaccination of was it a 90-year-old woman in England? The first one rolling out of her wheelchair, rolling along in her wheelchair. And it was, the whole world paid attention, right? Historic. So, okay, last week didn't happen. This week it happened. Things change. When I was 19, my father died. And that was a shock for me because my father was a big, strong man. He was a champion athlete in multiple sports in Canada and was a decorated war hero and just big, strong guy. And he died of diabetes-related illness. And I was not prepared for that, my siblings and I. So one of the things that I did is I was mourning. I was a college sophomore at my university up in Michigan. And a friend of mine, a woman from Detroit, said, you know what? She said, you'll get through this. You're a Scorpio. And I said, I don't know this stuff. All right, I'm not interested in that stuff. She said, well, give me your birthday. I told her my birthday. She went, no. Did the calculations and said, oh, yeah, no, you'll be fine. She said, you're pretty strong. And besides, this and this and this, she told me. And I'm like, how do you know that? We haven't known each other that long. I never mentioned. She said, oh, yeah, well, this and this and this and this. And everything she said about my nature were things that she couldn't have known unless there was something happening. And immediately, my antenna went up, and I'm like, How do you know that stuff? She says, it's basic. This is just astrology. Person-centered astrology, not event-centered, not, this week you should invest in, or don't go outdoors next week because there's danger, not like that. It's person-centered, humanistic astrology designed to talk about character and unfolding cycles of personal development. So it was like, that was interesting. I was really interested in that. Because why? I was grieving the loss of my father, and this was a distraction. So I picked it up and I inhaled astrology. I was full-time undergraduate at my university, but my studies of astrology suddenly it's as if it were under my skin, and I was peeling it back from within. It was that close to me. And everything I learned, I just compounded it. And so I could forget people's names. I never forgot their signs once I learned about their birthdays. And I just suddenly, like a leaf of the calendar turning, it's a new day, I was off to the races as an astrologer. And it kept developing, and I study and study. And it was parallel with my studies of Chinese and studies of Buddhism. So I got disciplined, and I got my ephemeris tables and table of houses and the Sabian symbols and books of interpretation. And I really, on my own, without any other support, dived in to the study of astrology. And it was so strange because it came from the past. How could I have, where has all this knowledge been waiting for me? Very much like my understanding of the Chinese language. It seemed to me that somehow these potentials were waiting, like seeds under the ground, like bulbs waiting to pop up in February, So things like tulips and all of the bulb flowers. They don't show up in August, they show up in February, right? But they were there all along. So give the right season, the right sunlight, up it comes. Okay, so I left home, continued to study astrology, carried my stack of books because it's quite a disciplined mathematical study, and didn't realize how strongly this was part of my thinking, was cycles, influence of planets, sun and moon, zodiac houses, angles, etc. All the things that you study is in astrology. And mind you, it's not newspaper prognosis. It's not that kind of stuff. All right. So, went off into my pilgrimage and was silent for 6 years. And while with no books, right? All of those was set aside on my bookshelf back at the monastery. And even without the tools of astrology, I was noticing the movements of the sun and moon and the planets in nature, and I lived outdoors. So it was, if anything, it was strengthened. And I was tuned in to astrological cycles. Even though I wasn't talking to anybody, I was still observing. I was looking at the world through the lens of astrology. And unaware how important that was to me that I had adopted it when I needed something to help me get through the loss of my father, and that I had grabbed on astrology. And so 3 Steps One Bow arrived at City of 10,000 Buddhas, and so one day I was still silent, but I was talking to Shifu, Master Hua. And one day after a lecture at the Miao Yutang, Wonderful Words Hall, not the Wordless Hall, but the Wonderful Words Hall, where we used to have Saturday afternoon lectures, Master Hua said, Guozhan, he said, you still doing astrology? And I'm like, no, yes, Shifu. And he said, yeah, you study the Avatamsaka Sutra. You're looking at the teaching of the Dharma realm. You're looking at wisdom that pervades the Dharma realm and the 3 periods of time, and the 10 directions. And you're still worried about like one birth on one planet in one world system at one time. Don't you think you're shortchanging yourself he said. Don't you think you're losing the big in favor of the tiny? And I'm like, yeah, maybe. And he said, yeah, why don't you really do it? And he said, why are you still clinging to this, like this little thimble of wisdom when you've got the entire ocean of wisdom? It's like a match in the sun, right? And you could tell, I could tell that he was giving me the full force of his spotlight, and it's like, Shifu was trying to teach me something, I better pay attention. Yeah, okay. He said, yeah, all right, so let's think about it. He said, if I were you, I wouldn't worry about this world. I would look at the Dharma realm, he said. So I'm like, okay. All right, so now I know that Shifu is focusing on me in astrology. Maybe I better look at it. So I kind of did. And I wasn't doing a lot of horoscopes, but when I was a grad student, I made astrology one of my livelihoods. I did charts for hire. I could draw up charts. So, okay, now is the time. Maybe I better, So, 2 more years pass, and now I'm talking. 3 more years. I go away to Calgary, come back, and haven't been doing a lot of astrology, but I kind of thought Shifu's challenging me to progress, to make progress in my cultivation. Maybe let go of an attachment. I said, maybe I could. So one day, here was Master Hua. We were now in Burlingame at the Translation Institute. And I said, Shifu, I've been thinking about what you said to me a few years ago, and I think I'm ready to let go of astrology. I want to pick up the real Dharma. I said, here are my books, and I want to give them to you, Shifu, as a sign that I'm ready to let go of astrology. Shifu said, oh. And he held, there's a stack, the tools of an astrologer, the tables. You need these tables. They go back, a century, And he goes, you want to let go of astrology, huh? Good. He said, that's a good idea. But you know what? Just you keep them and just don't open them, he said, and handed them back to me and turned around and walked away. I'm like, it'd be so easy if I just gave them to him and then I couldn't touch them because he had them, then it's him. Nope, he's way too smart for that. It's like, if you mean it, do you mean it? Just don't go there in your mind, is what he said. So, okay, so that was, see here. Okay, so astrology books, the Avatamsaka Sutra, and my letting Shifu know that I was willing to let go of this attachment. Okay, so somehow, because I mentioned it to him, that I was really ready to stop doing astrology and thinking about it a lot, in my mind, it was easier than I'd expected to actually stop thinking about it and not looking at the world around me and the people in my relationships through the lens of astrology. I really stopped. How much the more did I stop doing charts or, thinking of myself as a Scorpio with a Pisces moon and Sagittarius rising, and paying attention to, Bill Clinton is a Leo, oh boy, George W. Bush is a Cancer, oh boy, Didn't do that anymore, didn't do that stuff. So, okay, I was about to go off to my graduate program, GTU, get my doctorate. And the day before class began, I got a phone call. And Shifu said, Guozhan, he said, I've got there's a layman here, he's visiting. And I told him, I said, I have a disciple who's a really good astrologer. He's been studying it for many lifetimes, and he will do your horoscope, but it'll cost you $10,000. He's here now, Guozhan. If you will do his chart for him, it's $10,000. You can make an offering of that. What do you say? There's the phone call. And Shifu has somebody downstairs who wants me to do his horoscope because I've done astrology life after life after life, he said, and $10,000 will be mine to do good with if I do his horoscope. I said, Shifu, I don't do astrology anymore. Shifu said, good, give me the books now. Bring them down. And so I like, okay. Hung up the phone, took my astrology books, which were dusty on the shelf, gave them to Shifu. Whoosh, he took them away and didn't ever mention it again. So, and I didn't, since then, I have not had astrological thoughts. I haven't thought that way, right? So, the story comes in the context of what? Attachments and expedience. Somehow, Shifu was tuned into my mind, and he gave me these little clues that I had been doing astrology for a long time. He also told me that I'd been a doctor for many lifetimes. So a lot of astrology came with medicine. So somehow this was my past. And he was tuned into me, and he knew that when I said, Shifu, I'd like to give you my ephemeris tables, he knew that I didn't really mean it, but if I could actually not think about them and not touch them, that I could get past that attachment. And so somehow at the right time, he gave me a test. And the test was, can I do a horoscope for somebody for money and be Shifu's famous astrologer disciple? No. You told me to stop it, I did. I stopped it. Good. Give me your books. Wow, what a skillful teacher, knowing when, right? So, just to mention that, let's see here. Question, Dharma Master, can and will the Bodhisattva take across beings who commit the 5 rebellious acts to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land? Okay, good question. What are the 5 rebellious acts? The 5 rebellious acts they're also called the wunizhi in Chinese, and they're the 5 unpardonable offenses. They are killing your father, killing your mother, so patricide, matricide, killing an arhat, somebody who's awake, shedding the Buddha's blood with intention, and breaking up the harmony of the Sangha. They say a wheel-turning assembly of Sangha. Those are the 5. And they say, the story goes, that should one, in this lifetime, kill your father, kill your mother, kill an arhat, shed the Buddha's blood, or break up the harmony of the Sangha with malice, intent, that does real damage to your nature. You break it. What was a mirror now is like that. You can't see your reflection clearly any longer because of what you did. So, the question was, if somebody does that, can they still go to Amitabha's Pure Land? All right. Trick question. Why is it a trick question? Because they say, there's the questioner is savvy. They're putting these 2 sayings side by side in creative tension with each other. What are they? One saying says, if somebody commits the 5 cardinal offenses, the wunizhi, you can't become a Buddha in this lifetime. You have to come back. And the harm done to you is so severe that even should you have lots of blessings, lots of good cultivation, it can't heal the split that happens to the harm. Think about, let's change the metaphor. If your parents are your roots as a person, you have taken an axe and chopped your roots and harmed yourself that way. The saying is, having done that, you can't become a Buddha in this lifetime. You have to wait and come back. You're knocked out of contention, for potential Buddhahood. That's one. The other saying is that Amitabha Buddha's 48 vows will take even offenders to the Pure Land, where you wait until your offenses, you're in the lotus, right? This lotus on my screen, right? That could be a very fine Pure Land lotus on my desktop here. That those offenses gradually go away because you've been taken across to the Pure Land. Amitabha's vows will take you there. My answer is, are you a lawyer? Does that question come from a lawyer's perspective? Are you there to make your case? Right? Well, Your Honor, it says here in this sutra, right? So, the answer is, it depends who you talk to. There are different points of view on that. I am not going to do more than say, go look at the commentaries of the many Pure Land patriarchs and matriarchs who have taught about that. There are different schools of thought on that. And your interest in it, I'm assuming that you yourself have not killed your mother or your father or an arhat, haven't shed the Buddha's blood and haven't broken up the Sangha. So you're asking the question, why? Why do you need to know that? I would recommend not committing the 5 evil acts, getting into that lotus flower, and then coming back and telling us the answer, right? Otherwise, your question is kind of a sophistical one, right? Knowing the answer to that question won't help you get there unless you yourself have done the 5 evil deeds, right? So, even if you knew, so what? You still have to recite the Buddha's name, right? So, if anybody wants to inspect, want to do your research, we can report back next week. I know we have a lot of scholars in Buddhology who can go look up, and they can say, Yi Zhishu Dashi in the Ming Dynasty said, however, Yin Guang Dashi in the Republican period said, So let's challenge you, give you all some homework. You can all go look into it and come back and let's talk about it next week. Let's find out. Who is on which side? No, you can't. Bodhisattvas can't cross you over to the Pure Land until you come back having purified the offense of the 5 evil deeds. Okay? So we'll see. Tricky question, tricky answer. Yeah. Okay, I had a song that I was going to share, but we're out of time. I was going to take us to the simple gifts, beautiful, wonderful, Shaker hymn, simple gifts, really love it. And how I got into simple gifts was explaining the Medicine Buddha repentance yesterday. And it's the third the third scroll of the Medicine Buddha repentance. And it's where the repentance liturgy takes us to emptiness. Oh man, it's so beautiful. It used to bring me across the bay on Saturdays to encounter that. And we did 1 Dren every week. And the week that it was the third scroll, I would love it because it empties out self and empties out dharmas, and it takes you back to face with the Buddha nature, which is what the 6th patriarch encountered when it was Ying Wu So Zhu Er Sheng Qi Xin. You should have the thoughts that stop nowhere, right? And there it was. And I thought, wow, this song, Simple Gifts, is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And so I was gonna, it takes it's as if that song came from the awakened nature. Talks about simplicity as the Buddha nature itself. Okay, but then I thought, even better with today's topic of expedient, the paramitas, the perfections. I thought, here's my attachment song from 3 Steps, 1 Vow. This is really aimed at today's lecture. So, I gave up my pad in Berkeley. I gave up my Volvo car. I gave up my Nikon camera and my favorite Guild guitar. No one forced me to renounce them. Give or take, it's my affair. Those things chained me to my ego. That's the way attachments are. I don't want to be a lover. I don't want to be a star. I just want to keep my precepts pure, as Bodhisattvas are. I don't want a house in Aspen or a pad in Malibu. I just want to cultivate the Buddha's path. It's straight and true. I don't want a fancy sports car. I don't want a sailing yacht. I just want the Bodhisattva's purity in every thought. So, Shifu, seeing our attachments, taught us, using those attachments, how to make progress. That's why it takes so long, I think, to really cultivate the Buddhahood. We have so many things that we just can't put down. And it's not that let's see here, medicine, it's not that the objects of desire have some special power, right? Astrology is not to blame. It's that I can't let it go, right? Until Master Hua looked kindly, compassionately, looked into my nature and said, you're stuck here. You cling to that. Let's see if we can't clean you up by that much. And it took years, right, for me to recognize how much I was clinging on to that view of the world. What's wrong with astrology? It's a system of knowing, but it's not the Avatamsaka Sutra, right? It's not the liberated mind. So how hard Shifu had to work to get me to see that and to let it go. That's why it takes a long time to cultivate the Buddhahood. Alrighty, I'm going to ask Jinchuan, Jinwei Shi, anybody from the Berkeley Monastery to talk about schedule. Anything going on?
Yeah, Dharma Master, it's Jinwei here. We just finished on Friday Amitabha session, 7 days of Amitabha session. And we returned to our kind of daily normal schedule. You can find all information of berkeleymonastery.org. It's morning ceremonies, meditations, a lot of things going on, basically. I included lectures. So please come and join us. We are every day are cultivating virtually in our Buddha Hall.
Super. Okay, berkeleymonastery.org. All right, lovely. Very much appreciate the efforts to translate into Vietnamese, and our efforts are translating into Chinese. How many people today? 65 people listening in Chinese. How wonderful that is. How many folks are on YouTube today? Well, add them up and see. 160. Well, that's pretty much standard. Okay, delighted. Thank you all for joining. We go bit by bit, and let the Avatamsaka Buddhas and Bodhisattvas bless us as they choose to do so. Meanwhile, America is losing every day as many people as died at 9/11 to the COVID virus, and where the vaccine has arrived, but it's going to take time to organize, and so we're suffering a lot. And while Shifu did say the Great Compassion mantra is very suitable for helping people dispel the causes of illness, the Medicine Buddha mantra for anointing the crown of the head is another one of those powerful spiritual medicines that goes into our natures and zhengli gets us balanced and back in harmony. If we're too much, it reduces. If we're deficient, it increases till we find the optimum state of balance. So let's recite this. And it's here in Sanskrit. Sounds good when we put our hearts behind it. We use this as transference, right? This is how we transfer. So please make a wish. Send it out wherever you would like it to go. And then after that, we'll bow 3 times and see you next week. Here we go. Ready? Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathāgataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Vajjata Om Vaisajya 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 Samgate Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathāgataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaisajya 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 Samudgate Swaha. One more. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathāgataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Vaisajya 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 Samgate Swaha. Alrighty, so I'm going to ring the bell 3 times and do 3 half bows here, and welcome to join me. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. See you all next week, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.